So I'll talk to him.
So you're going to call him and tell him that I've been arrested?
The story is based on real-life criminal cases. Some names, details, and events have been altered for privacy and dramatic purposes. While every effort has been made to ensure accuracy, certain information may not be factually verified. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Some of these cases remain unsolved to this day.
The case of Elena Bardin, a Kentucky teacher's fall from trust. Good day, and welcome back to Mysteris. This report examines a case that unfolded in Kentucky, involving a young educator whose role was meant to rehabilitate rather than exploit. Before the events became public knowledge, the individuals involved lived quiet lives defined by routine. That quiet was broken when allegations surfaced that a teacher assigned to a juvenile detention center had crossed boundaries that are considered legally, ethically, and morally inviolable. Please, before we continue, do not forget to like and subscribe, as it supports the channel and allows the work to continue with careful research and responsible storytelling. The case centers around 27-year. Her role was not simply instructional. Who worked as a teacher. Educators in such settings often act as stabilizing forces in the lives of youth who are working through challenging circumstances, legal consequences, and personal histories that may include trauma. Trust and responsibility are foundational. The educator's presence is expected to provide structure, growth, encouragement, and positive authority. That expectation.
Have anything on you? You're all in ready.
Yeah. I think that my attorney's calling him a pocket.
I'll be here.
Is not a formality. It is a professional oath. Prosecutors alleged that the trust placed in Bardin was breached when she formed a relationship with a teenage inmate that should never have existed. The relationship was described as sexual in nature, according to testimony and investigative findings presented in court. Letters exchanged between the two became a central piece of evidence. The letters were said to contain explicit language and expressions of romantic attachment. They revealed an emotional closeness that prosecutors argued was cultivated through prolonged, deliberate contact. Investigators also stated that the exchanges included images. Those images, according to their claims, were explicit and sent with the intention to maintain and deepen the inappropriate connection. In environments like detention centers, communication is monitored, regulated, and subject to oversight. Yet individuals determined to bypass those structures may find ways to do so. That is what the prosecution contended happened in this instance. Bardin was arrested after these communications came to the attention of authorities. The investigation involved reviewing the letters, interviewing staff, examining facility protocol, and speaking with the teenager involved. Each of these elements contributed to constructing a narrative of events leading up to her arrest and eventual trial. During the trial, a second layer to the story emerged through the content of the letters. Within the written exchanges, there were segments where Bardin referenced her husband. Prosecutors argued that these portions of the letters contained discussions of harming him, specifically suggesting that the teenager involved could kill him. The claim was not that a plan was enacted, but that the conversation existed in writing. This allegation elevated the seriousness of the situation, shifting it from a boundary violation to something that prosecutors viewed as suggestive of potential violence. However, when the case was presented before jurors, the outcome on that charge did not align with the prosecution's request. Bardin was acquitted of the charge involving the alleged solicitation to harm her husband. Her defense argued that the conversation within the letters was not a genuine plan. They stated it was either sarcasm, frustration, or a form of exaggerated emotional dialogue that lacked sincere intention. The jury, after reviewing the evidence, did not find enough grounds to convict her on that portion of the case. But the acquittal on that charge did not absolve her of the others. Bardin was found guilty of charges related to sexual abuse. The evidence presented in those areas was considered sufficient to demonstrate that the relationship between her and the teenager did not remain within professional boundaries. The guilty verdict indicates that the court recognized the connection as exploitative and unlawful. It is important to note that in legal terms, consent is not applicable in scenarios where one party is a minor or where a power imbalance removes the possibility of free, equal decision-making. The authority held by a teacher in a correctional environment compounds that imbalance significantly. As the verdict was read, the courtroom did not react with dramatic displays. Observers noted that the atmosphere remained subdued. Cases involving educators and minors often evoke strong public reactions due to the betrayal of trust involved, but inside the courtroom, the focus remained procedural and measured. The sentencing phase of the case was scheduled to follow in November, where Bardin could receive up to 14 years in prison. The community where the detention center is located expressed concern, disappointment, and a desire for stronger oversight. Facilities that house juveniles are under constant scrutiny due to the vulnerability of the population they serve. Any breach reinforces public fears regarding the adequacy of supervision and safety protocols. Authorities connected to the facility released statements emphasizing that measures would be reviewed and reinforced where necessary. The teenager involved in the case was not publicly named, in accordance with laws protecting the identity of minors. Records pertaining to individuals under detention are sealed for their protection. What is known is that the teenager was already navigating a system designed to correct behavior and guide rehabilitation. The introduction of an inappropriate relationship could influence emotional development, decision-making, and trust in authority. Those effects may extend far beyond the time frame of the incidents themselves. During trial proceedings, Bardin's defense emphasized factors they believed should be considered in evaluating her actions. They pointed to her mental state during the period in question, describing stressors and emotional challenges. They presented the communication in the letters as emotionally charged rather than strategically violent. The court, however, remained focused on the legal framework.